Simon Newman came to Hills Ferry out of the gold country in 1869. He started a general merchandise business which grew rapidly. He built warehouses on the river and became the area's largest grain buyer. He started to buy land. He was soon the area's largest landowner. When the railroad wanted to come through in 1887, Simon owned the ground where the city of Newman now stands. He deeded the railroad there right away. On May 5th, 1887, he gave the Pacific Improvement Company 320 acres for development. When the railroad was completed in 1888, Simon moved his warehouses up from the river up to the railroad. He later built more warehouses in Patterson, Crow's Landing, and Bolton. He also built the largest department store between Stockton and Fresno. Their slogan was "Everything under the sun," and that was pretty close. If you entered the east door from Fresno Street, to the left side was all the women's apparel. Between the east and west door was dry goods and home furnishings. To the right of the west door was the men's department. Going upstairs, the first landing to the left was the toy department. At the head of the stairs was furniture and appliances. Going into the single story, the north half was the grocery department. The south half was hardware, guns, ammunition, saddles, and tack. The very west end was the corporate offices. In the back room, they used it for storage and where they kept their oil and some of the smaller farm equipment. Over on Merced Street, not where the Coin-Up Laundry now sits, they had a building where they housed the mowers, rakes, and larger farm equipment that they sold. As was customary in those days, the bigger merchants were the bankers in the absence of banks. Simon backed many of the old settlers, having everything they needed. He'd give them clothes, groceries, hardware, seed, even a team of horses if they needed it. When the crop was in, Simon would buy their grain and they'd come in and settle up their debt. Besides his extensive dry farming operation, Simon had sheep, beef cattle, and dairy. He had 4 dairies in all, one west of Gustine on Schmidt Road to Section 2 dairy. The Lenore Dairy and Stock Farm south of Gustine on Hunt Road. The Hale Dairy and River Dairy were both on the Noxon Ranch on Hale Road and Wagenheim Avenue. In the early 1950s, they closed the Section 2 dairy and consolidated the cattle into the other 3 dairies. In 1961, with the River Dairy needing much modernization to qualify for grade A milk production, they closed that dairy also, and they consolidated the cows into the Lenore and Hale dairies. Simon Newman was among the first to join the Dairy Herd Improvement Association. They kept records of the milk and butterfat production of their cows, and when they sold, their 2 dairies were among the top producing dairies in the state of California. Simon built a feed mill so to produce feed for his own dairies and to sell to others. The original feed mill was in the building where the Borges Glass now is, just east of the railroad. When the Miller and Lutz Canal was completed in 1878, Simon started to grow row crops, a variety of vegetable crops and feed crops. He owned the Noxon Ranch just above the Miller and Lutz Canal. 1,858 acres is some of the best farm ground to be had anywhere. He hand dug 4 big wells on the west boundary of the ranch along Easton Road. He powered the pumps with huge 1- and 2-cylinder Fairbanks Morse diesel engines. The diesel for these engines came in by rail on a spur line that ran from Lundy Road all the way to Mark's Gravel Pit. There was a tank car sitting just below Easton Road and pipelines that ran to each of the pumps. There was also a big tank just east of Hale Road where they bring in a carload of diesel to use in their Caterpillars and also for the big cook stove at the Dawson Ranch. Simon Newman were also among the first to plant walnuts on the west side. They were charter members in the Diamond Walnut Association in Walnut Creek. At that time, they were delivering 10% of the walnuts that were delivered to the association. Simon Newman Incorporated in 1898 and became the Simon Newman Company. Simon Newman Company founded the Bank of Newman in 1903. They expanded and had 3 branches in Patterson Cove Landing in Newman. Simon moved to San Francisco in 1875. Though he came to the valley frequently, he left his youngest brother, Sigmund Newman, as resident manager. Simon established his headquarters and offices in San Francisco in the Monadnock building on Market Street. Though he took an active part in the running of the Simon Newman Company, he was also the president of the Newman Brothers Grain Merchants, San Francisco, president of the Pacific Vinegar and Pickle Works at Hayward, and president of the North Alaska Salmon Company. Simon remained president of the company until his death in San Francisco on October 6, 1912. After his death, his brother Judah Newman took over as president from 1912 to 1934. Sigmund remained general manager until it was taken over by Simon's nephew, Emil Wagenheim. He was general manager from 1895 to 1939. After Sigmund's death in 1934, Wagenheim was president from 1934 to 1939. At that time, Simon's oldest son, Louis, became president from 1939 until 1960. Louis, or Uncle Louis as many fondly called him, loved Newman. This was his town. He did everything he could to promote it. He served as a mayor, served as a fire chief, served as the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and on just about every fundraiser or any good thing that was going on. He loved to live in Newman. His wife, Lorraine, preferred living in San Francisco. So a lot of times it was the case that Louis kind of visited San Francisco and Lorraine kind of visited Newman. But he always had his 2 bulldogs with him. He truly loved those bulldogs, and they were a big joy in his life. Louis was a nice person. People really liked him. In 1960, Louis retired as president. He sold his home and moved to San Francisco for the rest of his life. He remained the chairman of the board and went almost daily down to the office in the Monadnock building. Irving Rosenblatt Jr. became the next president. He was a grandson of Sigmund Newman. Irving stayed in that position until the sale of Simon Newman in 1973. Simon Newman Company truly was the last of the big, diversified farming and ranching outfits anywhere I know of. Each of the entities had their own cookhouse, the beef unit, each of the dairies, and of course the oxen ranch being the largest. The oxen ranch did all of the farming besides being support unit for the other units. The meals at Knoxon were cooked on a big diesel burning cook stove. In the peak of the season, they'd feed between 30 and 40 men in every meal. It wouldn't have been unusual to see a couple of hobos sitting in there amongst them. If they came along and asked for something to eat, they always got fed. In the early 1970s, with the first generation all gone, the second generation aging, and no one in the third generation to really take over the business, they decided to sell. The only one in the third generation that was Simon's grandson, Walter. He got an education in agriculture and came down in mid-40s and tried to work into the company. But the old dog just wasn't ready for his new ideas and the things he wanted to do. And so rather than fight it, he finally gave up and left. Walter, a highly decorated World War II hero, moved to the Bay Area and married Ellen Magnum. He died last year in 1912 after a long, productive life. Walter was always civic-minded, and he will long be remembered for his service to the community and his accomplishing contributions to society. Though Walter left Newman, he never lost his love for Newman. He was always there, ready to promote it and to support it and help whenever he could. Came down almost every year to the fall festivals, and we all look forward to seeing him. He sparked an interest into his son, Walter, who now has an interest in Newman, and how we are totally enjoying working with and the help that he has given us. Simon Newman finally sold in September of 1973. At the time of the sale, they had 42,000 acres of rangeland, 8,000 acres of dry farmland, 7,000 acres of underdeveloped lowland, and 8,000 acres of prime farm ground. The day of the sale was truly the end of an era. It was a sad day for the city of Newman, and even a sadder day for the longtime employees that had worked for them. Simon Newman was a good outfit to work for. Many of the employees had worked there for near a lifetime. Cap Hobbs had worked there for near 60 years. He was ranch manager and later vice president. Charlie Bassett, my dad, worked there for 55 years, serving most of that time as Knox and Ranch foreman. I worked there for 22 years. I'd probably still be there if the company hadn't sold. A big group of old-time employees were almost like a family of their own. Working for Simon Newman wasn't just a job. They took pride in their ranches and pride in their work, and they treated their job with a sense of ownership. Shortly after the sale, many of the old-timers left, not wanting to see this organization that they loved torn apart, and realizing that it could never survive under the management of the new ownership. And so ends the legend of Simon Newman Company.